morning, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to another video. If you are new here, first and foremost, my name is Lamikiona and I create a lot of content surrounded around my faith journey. Today we're going to be talking about something that's really been deep in my soul, not just my heart and my soul lately. So as we prepare to discuss some of the things that I've been talking about, some things may convict you, some things may bring a deeper thought into life in general, and I just think that it's something that I really been wanting to talk about, just because it's really been deeply rooted in me for the last couple months, especially as I am closing out my 20s and I'm entering in my 30s. And there's some deep work that I believe that the Lord is doing in my life, and that there's some deep questions, some deep things that just have to be answered. And I just realized that sometimes when we're navigating these, we feel like we're the only ones that are experiencing this. And I just want to bring this to your attention, that sometimes you're not the only one. Not sometimes, most of the time, you're not the only one that is experiencing something that the Lord is shifting in your life. So before I dive in, I just wanted to give that disclaimer. If you have not already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And let's get into this video. So the biggest thing that I've been experiencing is a lot of deep rooted questions about who has God called me to be. And while I've lived a lot of my life in this, not, I wouldn't say a lot of my life, but part of my life in a worldly view of life, of what I should be doing, of what I should have accomplished already, of what I should have done, of what I haven't done. And it takes a toll on you, because you look at somebody who's 21 and already bought a house and things like that, and you start to look at yourself like, okay, but why haven't I done that? I'm about to enter in my 20s and I don't own a home. And it's just so many different things that you start to download into yourself, and these lies that you tell yourself, that I should have gotten this by this age, I should have done this by this age. But it's like, why are we defining life choices by an age? Because if we really truly want to live, love, and lead like Jesus didn't start his ministry until he was 30. But not even just until he was 30. He was affirmed by God. He was just affirmed in a way that all of us have that capability to be affirmed in the Lord as well. But I think sometimes we get into these worldly perspectives that we should be doing something by a certain age, that we should have these things by a certain age. But why is it always attached to a certain age? Why is it always attached to, I should have this, I should have that? If we know that the word is true, and the Lord said, I knew you before I even formed you in your mother's womb. If we think, just sitting with that scripture, if God already foreknew you, if God already knew the things that you would accomplish, the things you would do, the things you would say, the places you would go, like, he already knew these things. But we get so consumed in what the world tells us that we forget that our Heavenly Father has already guided our path, already led our path for our lives. So why are we looking for a timeline when God didn't give a timeline? He knew you before he formed you in his mother's womb. That means he knew the timeline of your lifespan. He knew what the things that you would do in life. He knew your purpose. He knew all of these things. He knew this before. And it even goes back to saying where how the Lord talks about, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways. Because sometimes we are looking at life in such a small way compared to how God sees us, compared to how God looks at our lives. We can look at this one span of life, this one situation, this one circumstance, and we can think everything is going to end. But God shows us in these circumstances that it's not actually that big. It was actually smaller than we ever even thought, because the bigger span of life is learning your purpose, knowing what God has called you to do, and going after that. Not going after what the world says, but going after what God says about you, what God says about you. Oh, that hit me. Y'all, that just gave me chills, because when I've been thinking about all the things and I've been sitting with what God has been leading me through all of my life, ever since I was a kid, I have loved kids since I was a kid. I've always loved kids. When I was a little girl, I was babysitting my brother, my sister. I was babysitting my cousins. That was what I did. That was what I did and continuously did. I remember doing a lesson with my sisters and my brother and my cousins, and I remember teaching, and that's always been something that I've been encouraged by teaching. I had a teaching gift. I have a teaching gift, and sometimes that teaching gift scares me, and that's something that the Lord has been revealing to me as well, is that I have given you a teaching gift. I have given you this gift, and you sometimes close it off because you are afraid what is on the other side of that teaching gift. When I was a teacher, I achieved so much in 2 years that some teachers didn't achieve in 10. And that's not to go to show that I'm better than anybody, no. But when God gives you a gift, you're going to be gifted in that gift. And I remember it taking a lot of toll on me. And I was thinking to myself, well, I don't want to do teaching anymore. I don't want to be with kids no more. And at the end of the day, God still led me back to kids when I started nannying. And it's just like all these continuous things where I've been with children or I've been with young girls. Like even recently, I received a message from one of the old teachers who sent me one of I won't say favorite students, but one of my lovely students I used to previously have, and she was like, "Hey, Miss King, I just wanted to say I'm a junior now and that I miss you." That right there shows the impact that you make on children's lives, that sometimes you don't even know you're making an impact. But when these kids literally go out and still do stuff, where I'm constantly, y'all, last year I constantly would get calls about students achieving writing scores, improvement. A student wrote finished her book when we did a book project, and those things is because God gifted me in that gift. But in that circumstances, then I was looking at it like, I don't want to be no teacher no more. I don't want to deal with these kids. But at the end of the day, I realized that the Lord put me in that situation for a reason. He wanted me to see my teaching gifts. He wanted me to see that I have a gift of seeing students on not just from the broader of the outside, but I see them on a deeper level. I see children on a deeper level. I don't look at them as they're a problem. I look at them as they are beautiful creations of the Lord that are just crafted in a way that just need help. And I just realized that while I may not be physically in a classroom, I know that my teaching gifts are meant to go further and further than I've allowed them to go because of my own fear or my own doubt or my own frustration. And as I'm stepping towards my 30s, I'm just realizing so many different things about myself. I'm asking questions about, what do you even like? How do you like your hair? What do you like? What's your favorite perfume? These are things that I'm asking myself constantly, because you can get to a place where you look on the outside and you feel like you should look like that. You feel like you should be weighing that much. You should be wearing these kind of clothes. You should be doing this. I'm like, what do what does Lamikiana Williams want? What does Lamikiana Williams want when it comes to anything that I do in life? And then I'm just also not just asking myself these questions, I'm asking the Lord, because the Lord knows me better than I know myself. And I just realized these questions are prompting me to deeper roots. I'm asking myself questions about my inner self. I'm asking myself questions about my 10-year-old self who loved writing, who had a joy for just writing books and poetry and things like that. I haven't written poetry in years. Now, I did write a poem for I think the last time I wrote a poem was for my family reunion that I recently had, but I had not written a poem in like over 20, maybe 20 years. And that hurts me, because it's like, when I think about that, why did I drift away from that? Why did I feel like that I had to go farther away instead of drawing nearer to something that was deep rooted in me? And I feel like as we get older, sometimes we forget the significance that our inner child has on us in today, and those inner child things that we know our purpose within our hearts because we learned them as a child. We grew up and found fear. We grew up and let doubt enter our heart. We grew up, and sometimes the world told us these negative perspectives of ourselves, and we downplayed what we already knew about ourselves. And sometimes we just have to realize we have to unlock that again. And I'm just realizing as I'm stepping into my 30s that I have to unlock that inner child that just loved on herself, that just knew herself, that just felt at peace with herself. Because as you get older, sometimes you don't feel at peace with yourself because you're not even at the root that makes you happy. You're not even at the root that brings you joy. And that's the thing about life. It's like it can teach you in so many different ways if you allow it to. And I know I kind of went everywhere, but these are things that have been deep in my heart, and I just wanted to be able to share these things because I know there's somebody out there that is experiencing these kind of questions, and you're thinking to yourself, how do I get through this? Keep asking yourself these questions, because God will answer your questions. God will answer your questions. Maybe not in the way that you wanted to, maybe not in the way that you thought, but he will answer those questions because he wants you to get to your inner self, to know who you are, to know who he called you to be. And I just think like it's just a beautiful journey that it's been to. I'm not gonna lie, it has been rough, meaning like sleep wise, but it's also been beautiful to just hear myself speak to myself in a way that is loving, kind, and gentle. Because when you start to love and be kind to yourself, you start to unlock a different level of love for yourself. And that's what I'm just literally learning in this season, of just loving myself and knowing who I am and who God has called me to be. I know that was a lot, but I thank you all for just opening up the space for me to just speak on some things that I've been going through, to speak on some questions that I've been asking myself. And I just pray that this video encourages you to ask yourself the deeper questions that sometimes you pushed away for a very long time. And it's time, no matter if you're entering a new era of age or no matter if it's the middle of the year, start to ask yourself these questions, because it's time for us to get back to who God called us to be, not what the world told us we should be. Thank you all for tuning into this video. I pray that this encouraged you. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next weekly vlog next week. Bye, y'all.